Welcome back to Old Guy REI. Mike and I are back, whether you want us or not. We we're going over the Zoom meeting highlights for August 13th, 2025. Hi, Mikey. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks, Frank. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, as usual, we had another good meeting. We started out by talking about the situation in Milwaukee. We have a duplex there, and over the last few days, there was severe flooding in the city of Milwaukee. They canceled the World Fair there and lots of things. Water was really deep in a lot of places. We were pretty nervous about our duplex there, but we found that the basement basically had just gotten flooded. Although our water heaters and furnaces are down there, the units themselves were safe. We are having to replace the two furnaces, um, but thankfully, we hadn't heard about anybody being injured or anything. Brett was on with us that night, and I believe he's an EMT, right? He's not a firefighter. I believe he's an EMT. I'll have to clarify that with him, but he was talking about how a few days after when our meeting took place, that there was a run on water heaters. They were having trouble finding water heaters for people that needed them and things like that. I guess furnaces are not typically in the basement. A lot of times they're in the units, so maybe there wasn't quite as much of a demand for those as there was for the water heaters. But we spoke with our property manager, and the furnaces are being replaced. They should be done tomorrow, which would be Monday the 18th. So we're just glad they were able to get to it right away. Just more challenges, right, on this journey. Um, but things we're able to get through.
And
We
he has he has an electrical background, so he was talking about the troubleshooting he was doing, and you were also talking about the different ways you could mount the water heaters and just things to look for in the future.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts that went through my mind because these are gas water heaters. And, right away, my first thing was, is there room to put them up higher? Sometimes, well, here in California, they sell water heater stands and they're usually about 16 inches tall. So the water heater would be 16 inches off the floor, but then you need room for the venting and everything to go up. In this case, it would be the basement ceiling and going through the walls or whatever to get out the roof. Sometimes there's not enough room to do that. Um, but I also wondered if there was room to add circuits for two electric water heaters because the electric water heaters, you can buy short water heaters and you can either put them up really high. Sometimes you can even, I've seen some where they were turned on their sides. I thought about that for the furnaces too, because sometimes when they put them up in the attic, they lay on their side. And I didn't know if that was a possibility, but we didn't really have time to explore too many options because the tenants were, they sent in requests to get the heating and air conditioning back on. But it's something that I should research for other properties because the ones in St. Louis are in the basements also. We speaking of St. Louis, we had another person drop in, a new person. Tom and his wife Tammy were with us on the call, and they live near Festus, Missouri. But he was saying he's been a landlord for a couple of years, and thankfully he's been having really good luck finding tenants. They were also have been a part of Lifestyles Unlimited, which I had heard the name but didn't realize what it was. But it's a real estate investing community as well. So that was nice to hear. Steve was with us that night, and he mentioned that he's been doing research in Florida, right? He's looking in Florida, and he was in analysis paralysis, and he just wasn't finding any deals that were working for him. But he ran across somebody on TikTok that was an investor and an agent. So he all of a sudden has two properties that he's looking at to possibly purchase. Maybe we'll hear this Wednesday how that went. I know he mentioned a couple.
What is TikTok like? I don't go on it too often. Is there, compared to IG, is there a lot of good investing content?
Like Zuper says, you got to be careful what you watch. Sometimes I'm on there quite often and I get teased about it because I'm old, but there is space. There is space for older people and there's a lot of good content. Um, but so if you're kind of scrolling and you run across a video where, it's a road rage video or something, all of a sudden that's all you're getting. And it could get tough. But if you start out, there's one woman on there called the Happy Investor, I think. Her name's Jackie Coffee, and she's doing flips and burrs and things in Texas. And she has a lot of great content. She has a mentorship program. Um, there lately, I've been watching a few from other contractors on how they do their estimates. That's one of the things we got into that night was how some of our other contractor friends in the group do their estimates. So that content has been useful. There is, well, the stuff that I find valuable, there are some people posting like daily prayers and things like that. Um, but like I said, you got to be careful. If you stay on one thing for a couple seconds too long, then that's what they're going to start sending you. So sometimes you have to kind of refresh and delete your watch history. I do that every couple of days because otherwise, if you get into the bar brawls or whatever's on that day, that's all you see, and that's not productive. There are some other people like Fantastic. She's on there talking about uh, that's similar to what Jared does, right? Infinite banking,
Oh, Velocity?
velocity banking. Yeah, that's right. So it's a velocity banking, and she has some good content. For me, I watch a lot of, well, lately I've been listening to a lot of people that retired early with without millions of dollars, in their accounts. That's been helpful because when we retire, we're not going to have a ton of money in the bank or retirement accounts either. So it's interesting to see how they save money or how much it takes them to live month to month, things like that. So that's been pretty cool.
Whenever I'm working and I see a customer who is close to retiring or is going to retire in a month or so, I pull them off to the side and I ask them a bunch of questions like, I want to know what your number is, how did you get to this point? So it's
Yeah,
fun.
and it's nice. It's nice. Do you find that most of those people are okay with speaking to you about it?
Some are more on the shyer side, but some, what I've been hearing is they'll say, I'm afraid to retire because I think a lot of my other friends that do retire, they actually end up passing away, maybe a year or two later.
Hmm.
But I try to tell them, hey, you should check out Dion Talk Financial Freedom. It's just like as long as you have something to retire to, like Joe Kuhn says.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. I know um, when you mention people are afraid, I think some of the fears that I don't really think about not having something to do when I retire, but I think we're always afraid of that big expense that might happen, and maybe either it wipes out all of the cash that we have, um, or something like that, to where it makes it to where you wouldn't have enough money left over to continue, and then you have to go try to find a job or something like that. So um, that's a big concern. I don't think, on one side, it's a big concern. On the other side, I think, like you said, some we just have to jump in, right? Because I've also heard that a lot of people live for quite some time and they die with a lot of money in the bank. So, they were worried for nothing. So there's so many things to consider about retirement and being where we're at this point in our lives. But getting back to the TikTok thing, and not just TikTok, but social media in general, it's nice that we have exposure to all these different concepts and all these different ideas that might help us take the jump sooner rather than later.
That's one thing Dion talks about. Sometimes you're just in zombie mode after a long day, and I get that. So like sometimes I'll just come home and even though I should be doing stuff, I should be researching more and learning my market more or networking more, I don't because I'm just so zombied out. I just end up either relaxing and scrolling. But
Yeah, yeah. And you and I were just talking about um, that. I think sometimes we need to do that. We have to be careful not to do it too often, but sometimes I have the challenge of needing to break away from some of the social media stuff that we've been involved in all these past couple of years, actually 4 or 5 years now. But and we've talked about some of the things that we're dealing with right now in our portfolio and stuff. So I sometimes I feel like I just need to shut all that off and concentrate on the issues at hand, try to just work through them as the best I can. And then once all that stuff is resolved, then we can start, you know, trying to be out there again more in more places like we were before because you don't want to miss out on some good information either. I mean, you might have missed out on something that could save you money or save you time or whatever in your real estate investing journey.
and that's why the group helps because we try to divide and conquer. If there's something I pick up that maybe more that could pertain to you, I'll relay that information and vice versa. So it's really helpful.
Yeah, and I'm super glad that we get to talk every week, you and I and Cynthia, because you have a lot of information that's been helpful to us. And um, if we didn't get together, you know, we might be struggling with an issue longer than we have to, or losing more money than we should on one thing or another. So yeah, the networking is great. All of the, well, I think we don't have too much doom on the stuff that we take in, you know, unless we don't scroll fast enough and we end up on some of the bad content. But there's a lot of good stuff out there too. We on that Wednesday call, we talked about someone asked me if we had thought about renting our place out here in California because you know we're hoping to sell it and move to Washington. And I was telling them that I'm a little nervous about that because we're on a septic system and renters don't usually care. They just think, you know, things get flushed and they don't care where they go. But um, septic systems are not 100% set it and forget it, right? We would want to be getting them pumped out every year or two, depending how many people are living in the house. Usually the septic systems are sized for the bedroom count. Our house is a 2 bedroom, but nowadays people are sticking, you know, 4, 5, 8 people per bedroom sometimes. And that would really put a lot of wear and tear on the system and they'd be flushing all kinds of stuff they shouldn't be. So I think for peace of mind, I would rather just sell and take the money and move it up there. Uh, there was a little bit of, well, there was a lot of entrepreneurship talk that night, right? The last couple meetings have kind of moved towards some of us being contractors and talking about our situations that we go through. There's one person in the group that has a family member that's trying to get started as a contractor. So he was asking us questions to relay information to his family member. And that's cool because like I think you were on the call this weekend, Saturday, with Mark and us. Mark had 3 of us contractors on with him, and there was a lot of great questions. It seemed like everybody was really interested and didn't get all their questions answered. So, you know, Mark suggested that either I or Jim or Carlos get another meeting together so that we can answer more questions. It seems like a pretty hot subject.
That was so much value in that live stream. You're right about the questions because I could see the questions coming in, and there are even people outside of the group asking questions because I think a lot of people have questions for contractors and they just want to make sure that they have enough knowledge to understand what they're getting quoted and just understand that process. Because I know for every contractor, it can be different. And it's good to get an understanding what the contractor is seeing for their time, but also what the investor or client is seeing for their time as well.
Yeah, I think in general, the regular public, people that are looking for contractors or handyman, somehow they still don't realize how much expenses have gone up. So when we go into a bid these days, it's like double what it was, a year or two ago. And a big part of the reason, of course, is the materials, but it costs us to live here in these areas that we're in too, and we need to make enough to survive as well. But I I think I've seen more people recently not necessarily dismiss my bid, but certainly taking more time to think it over because it's going to cost them way more than they imagined. And I try to explain everything. If I get to that point, I try to explain why it's what it is, and that usually helps. But hopefully they'll get. I think most of the time when they get other bids after me, those bids are even higher than I am. So you know, um, they don't always take the least expensive bid, and we shouldn't, right? But it gives them something to think about that I'm just not crazy spitting out all these high numbers.
And
So
you'll
yeah,
work with them. You'll work with them too. If maybe that first quote was too high, then you could say instead of doing this, we could change it, maybe not have to move the toilet this way. We could
mhm.
revise it.
Yeah, we did. I think on Wednesday we did have another meeting with one of our clients that wanted to do just like that. She wanted an extra tub. They have a shower, but she wanted to add a tub in the room, move the toilet, like you said, and all that plumbing. That even just the standalone tub, they range from $1,000 and up, depending on what it's made of, how big it is, and things like that. And then all that extra plumbing adds quite a bit. So we went back and we modified that. I'm working on it this weekend to um, figure out what difference the changes would make. But yeah, I'm okay with that. And I would say I'm more open to that with someone I've worked with before. And these people I have, very nice people. And they didn't really want to bother me to have to go and refigure stuff out. But for them, I told them I'm happy to do it. Um, Somebody else, I might not have gone that far. It just depends. We talked, and I think the information we brought on that night was very helpful to a lot of people. But some people checked out because it wasn't something that maybe they were doing or interested in right now. But we also talked about kind of our daily lives, and I talked about putting too much stuff, trying to fit too much stuff in a day. And some people will think like, okay, I'm going to go and install a water heater. It's going to take me 2 or 3 hours. I should have it done by lunchtime, and then I can go to another job and do something. For me, I would I would be happy just doing the water heater and coming home. I find sometimes if I plan something after the water heater, if the water heater takes too long, then either I'm going to have to work really late to finish the second job and just all that extra stress, right? I know one person that does that and they're late everywhere because they try to fit too much stuff and they're always so stressed. And so I guess it depends how hungry you are, right? If you really, really need all that money for that day, then maybe the extra stress is worth it. But for me, these days it's not. And I'll go do the water heater and, come home, do some stuff around the house or something, but I don't have all that extra pressure on me to get that second job done.
Yeah, that discussion when you have the established business owners, then you have Ray's, he's like the new business owner, hungry, wanting to do as much work as can be done in the beginning. That's that good dynamic. You see the difference, pros and cons.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool too, right? Because like for this channel being the good, the bad, and ugly about real estate investing, we're giving him the good, the bad, and the ugly about being a contractor, and hopefully we don't talk him out of it. But he seems to have a good start. But and he's having challenges hiring good help and stuff like that. He's trying to do a lot of things on his own that aren't easy to do on your own, right? Just moving cabinets and installing a water heater. There are tools that can help you these days, like small carts and lifts and things like that, that would get the water heater into position that you could do by yourself. But then you're buying more tools like that, and those things aren't inexpensive. Um, so yeah, we'll see what comes up this weekend. I know we've tried to have more structure over the last few weeks, and even with that, some of the questions just lead us off into a different direction. So we got to just go with the flow.
It's still focused, and I learned a lot because that's what Matt says. Is once you become a landlord, you're a business owner, and it didn't really click to me until yeah,
Yeah.
you are, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. It's my systems and processes, but even when you had the live stream with the different contractors, is there anything you would change after that? You because you hear how they do their.
Yeah, I was telling them too that, especially hearing Jim and how he runs his business, he's the grumpy contractor. He should, well, we're waiting for him to start putting out content on his channel, but I I understand, and he brings up quite often that in his, say, hourly rate, whatever it is, that he's considering his setup time, right? Even back to loading up his tools for whatever specific job that day, getting to the job, unloading the tools, unloading the materials, cleaning up, reloading the truck, going back home and unloading the truck. So I ne- I never really charged for that time. And I mentioned in one of my videos, I think I didn't have a very good grip on the business side of my business. I'm very good on the craftsman side, but if I would have been better on the business side, then we would have been much better off in our lives today financially. I mean, we're fine, but we could have been much better off, maybe had a few more properties or something like that. So yeah, and Ray, even though he's not a contractor, he is a business owner, and he always has great questions. Um, and but he mentioned too that he's kind of in a comfortable mode, and you can't always stay that in that mode for too long. For contractors, like for what Jim mentioned that night, he keeps after me to buy this one tool for plumbing. It's the
Program.
ProPress tool, right? And I keep telling him, I'm trying to wind my career down. I don't want to be spending thousands of dollars on new tools, but you also need to learn, keep up with the new techniques of how things are done today, because that could save you a lot of time and trouble too. So you want to keep the education part up at least. I think Ray is comfortable where his earnings are and where his business is today. And, sometimes that just takes a few months or a year, and then eventually you pick it back up again. But yeah, I think as a contractor, I don't know. I don't think I've ever been in that comfortable mode, right? It's either striving to learn more, not really going after too many new customers or anything, because we've always had plenty of that by word of mouth with our reputation. So maybe that part's comfortable because I don't really ever fear that we won't have work. But yeah, you got to keep learning in your business, and you mentioned real estate being a business. So we know by now that you're never going to stop learning as far as the real estate goes.
it's the communication that left a big mark for me. How you have rules when you're going to do work with the homeowner, and you lay that out for your crew. It's like these are the rules. Do not like, and you're giving all the examples, and that was interesting. And even Jim, he has rules too. It's like, no, if the customer says, "Hey, can you give me this thing on the side?" No, we're not doing that. We're only doing what we agreed to on the quote. And then even Ray talked about his communication with people that he's hired, where he's more open and he wants to share everything, but then sometimes that ends up coming back not in the best way. But it's like all those learning lessons that we can take from your experiences. I think that's a great learning tool.
Yeah, hopefully people get some good out of it. I was feeling Ray that night because I'm like that too. I mean, sometimes it's obvious on these videos, I'll just talk all day long, but you have to be careful. And I was going to mention to Ray, I should probably contact him and mention to him that um, when you do that, in his situation, he was sharing the information with someone working for him. And the people that work for us don't have our passion about what we're doing, right? I love remodeling. He loves photography, but this person is hired to do something in his business. They don't necessarily love photography like Ray does. So I think that might be where the disconnect is. I love to paint. The people that work with me hate to paint. It just causes them so much stress. And I'm like, how can you be stressed? This is so relaxing, right? And and then too about the rules, setting the guys straight before we even go to a job. And it's crazy stuff. I've mentioned over the last few months that I think I'm not easy to work for because the way I was raised, for example, I brought the fruit example up that day, right? And it's happened several times over the years. I've mentioned people that work with me are either family members or good friends. And say we go to a job and they have this beautiful apple tree in the backyard. And all of a sudden, my guys are going picking apples, right? And eating an apple. I'm like, I don't want you touching the customer's fruit. It's not ours. Don't even ask the customer if you could have an apple. If they offer you one, and this is just a crazy example, but then we don't want to accept things from our customers because I think to me that makes me feel obligated if the customer does say, hey, can you do this little thing while you're here? And they've given you a basket full of apples or they bought you lunch or they've given you water, that kind of thing. I think keeping the business squared away is super important. There's, I don't know, I think I brought up another point where some of the guys are, just say the homeowner might be this beauty queen, right? And the guys can't take their eyes off her or something. And heaven forbid they ever make a comment because they won't have to worry about her. They'll be out on their ear before she can say anything. There's just those things. It's just how we were raised. Everybody was raised different. Hopefully, they have some self control or whatever that might be called. But yeah, so all those things come out in in our conversations, and it's stuff people don't think about, but and it's stuff that's important to me. Maybe the other guys don't care about that kind of stuff, but I think just hearing it, I know I've gotten a lot from listening to them.
Yeah, that was a good course of just effective time management. We hear the type of conversations you folks have, and it's like, how can we incorporate it into our landlording? So yes, all the meetings definitely learn something to the various entrepreneurs and business owners relating that into real estate.
Yeah, I think one of the last things we talked about was the bonus depreciation that you brought up earlier. That is it's back in now. So, and I think I feel the same way Dion does about that. Some people would like to take all that depreciation in their first year of buying a property. I'm more like Dion, where I want it to go ahead and last the 27 and a half years. Um, I think one thought that pops into my head is if you say you sold a property within the first 5 years, if you take all the depreciation out, you're going to have to pay all that back unless you do a 1031 or something like that. But if you've only taken the regular depreciation for 5 years, it's not going to really add up to too much. Especially, I think, like you brought up, if you have expenses over those 5 years, then what you would pay back into bonus depreciation might cancel out with the repair costs. Would you take bonus depreciation all at once?
I would want to check with my CPA and see that I always ask every time we have a tax meeting, but he always says it's not the right time now. But I always check in, and if he says no, I just listen to him.
Yeah, I think for us it'll take a few years to be in a different position. It might be an option later on, like you said, that we don't know about now or understand now. So we're learning. We're learning every day. I think that was all my notes for this meeting. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about today?
You did have a van confession recently,
Hmm.
and there was a lot of good comments in there. And I know throughout the group, a lot of people are getting hit, and like even me with various expenses as well. So it's good. Just when I watch that, you don't really hear people talk about it so transparently,
Hmm.
and I always appreciate that because this is like some things I don't know what it is. It's just I rather not talk about, but then yeah, you make it clear, and it's like I can relate a lot to what you're going through because I've been through challenges, and it's good perspective.
Yeah, and that one, like I said in the title, it almost didn't happen because, like you said, I mean, most of the time people know I'm just spitting stuff out. I don't care what I'm talking about, or that it's all you know sharing personal stuff about our situation. But Cynthia was the one that urged me to go ahead and put it out because that is stuff that people need to hear. We talked about um, not ever wishing those kinds of situations on our friends in the group or any other investors. Um, but when, and like you mentioned, we've gotten some great feedback on that video, but um, just to know that other people, that it's not perfect, right? I don't know anybody in the group. There might have been one or two who portray their journey as being perfect. And I personally wouldn't believe that because of what we've been through. Um, but it is good to hear that you're not alone, that people are struggling too. And they offer suggestions, right? That's the other cool thing is that they're like, hey, I'm going through that right now too. And this is what I did to help get me through it. So that's the plus for me. So I am glad that I put the video out there. I think um, just for that reason that you can see that it's helping someone for them just to hear, oh, I'm not the only one struggling. Frank and Cynthia are going through some stuff too, or Mikey, I know you had some stuff come up recently. Some of our other friends put some great comments in there. So I would encourage people to check out those van confessions because I think it's, Ray was Ray was joking about whenever he watches one, he has to bring popcorn and tissues because he usually ends up crying at the end. But I think he was messing with me that night. But it is real. I don't make any of this stuff up. I guess sometimes, unfortunately, it would be nice if some of it was made up, but um, it is what it is, and I'm happy to help any way I can. And in that last meeting with Mark and the other contractors, some people they're trying to figure out how do you hire someone that's trustworthy, right? Um, and somebody that's going to do a good job for you. I think Jen mentioned that she had some challenges recently, and I always, always tell people they can reach out. And if there's anything I can help them understand, like what does it take to remodel a bathroom, or how should they put the shower valves in, or how should the tile look when they're done, those kinds of things I can help with. So, hopefully people understand that I really mean it and they will reach out. A few have, and it's been awesome. So I just want to, let people know we can't always help everybody on the real estate side, but we can probably point them to someone who can or who's been through what they're going through. But on the contractor side, we've got some good guys in the group, and I'm sure all of them are willing to help if they can.
Yeah, through home inspections and repairs and quotes and estimates, you've helped me so much with all the different things I brought to you. I feel like I'm bugging you, but you say, "Hey, no problem. I'll double check, take a look at it, see." But I can say how much, and then even other people in the group reach out to you, and then we kind of hear what they're going through, or, "Hey, I got this invoice. What do you think of it?" And you break it down like, "No, actually, this is okay because from beginning to end, this is what they have to go through." But what I like most is the underlying tone of that video. It was just dogged determination. Like you're just gonna get through this in the end. It's just you're telling them what it is now, but the underlying tone is like, yeah, I'm gonna get through this, and then I'll be out on the other side.
Yeah, and I think uh, the other part to that point you just made is in a year or two, right? We'll go back and
Yeah.
all these videos and say, wow, you made it through a lot. And I like to reference, Brian Adamson. He's awesome, and I like one of his videos. It's the title is God, Why Me? But in it, he's talking about all these maybe the challenge you're going through today, right? And you're asking God, why me? Why are you putting me through this? But he also mentions that you need to sometimes we need to turn around and look back because there's so many things we've made it through. So one of the people that commented on the video said something similar, and you don't realize it, right? You get through it and you don't look back, but you should. And whether it's well, like for us, the bankruptcy thing that we've had in our past and that whole mess, at the time it's really, really stressful and hard. But now, I mean, that was in 2014, so 10, 11 years later, you should look back and realize that we're stronger than we think.
Yeah, and we were just talking about how Dion oftentimes will do how the one-on-ones or the course calls, and he is optimistic because he is looking at it from that 10-year perspective where we're in the now. We're just focused on now, like what do I got to do now to make it better? But when Dion looks at it, he's like, hey, how I look at your numbers, I see how everything is. It's gonna be okay. Just give it time. Once it's stabilized, I see great things. And
Yeah.
that's always good to have.
Yeah. And you're talking about him looking at our situations, right? Your situation, mine and Cynthia's situation. And he always says, we're further along than he was in his fourth year or whatever. Um, it's just hard because we do struggle not to compare ourselves to him and what he's done, or Matt or Zuber or whatever, because we're never, maybe in 20 years it'll look similar, but right now it helps when he looks at our stuff, and he's super helpful um, for a lot of people out there if they just reach out. So yeah, hopefully folks get a lot out of these calls that we do each week. I know I'm thankful for you just coming back and sharing what you're going through too each week, and always participating. You're always there on Wednesdays. We talk on Sundays, and um, we're probably a couple years into it now. I think you reached out to me in August a couple years ago. So thank you.
Yeah, I guess time's flying, but I'm so appreciative. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, before we go, we should probably, well, I'll try to put this video out tonight, but Mark's doing a giveaway tomorrow on his channel, The Financial Firefighter. He's giving away a couple of tickets to the ORAD event and some other things. I think he mentioned Dion's book. He's going to try to do some of the shirts. Thank you for wearing yours, the ORAD shirts. We're trying to raise money for the Blind Center like we did last year. And I can't wait to to be on there to watch tomorrow, see who wins what.
Yeah, congrats. 1,000 subscribers. That's no small feat. Congrats, Mark.
Yeah, really. Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll see you out there on his call tomorrow, but we'll look forward to seeing you again next week for this.
All right, thanks, Frank.
Thank you.